Good evening, all. Before moving to hands-on experience, let's talk about web application and what are the components with web application. First of all, welcome to ExcelR. My name is Rupa. I'm going to handle this session, and today's content is about web application and different types of web applications, and what are the architectures we have with the web application, and what is HTTP, and what are the methods we have, etc. So after this web application introduction part, then we will start up with a JDBC. Right. So what is website? What is website? So you all can, drop a message in chat window so I can respond on that. So what is website or web application? Very good evening. This is Ramya. Let me. Very good. So collection of web pages. Okay, just a minute. Good. A website, it's a collection of web pages. Right. So then what is web page? Related information, right? Yes, a website, say a website or web application, there will be a differences for each. Now we'll talk about website, then later we'll talk about web application. Right? It's a collection of related web pages that may contain text, images, videos, audio files, etc., or graphics, right? So we can call it as a website. It's a collection of related web pages, right? Yes, a web page that may contain related information. And yes, so a website which is having, first page, which displays first page. We have, in day-to-day life, we have used many web applications, right? So every application will be having its own home page, right now. So the first page which is displayed by web application, that's called it as a home page. Right? So each website has its own specific URLs that needs to be entered in browser. So then only we are able to access the required, web pages for a particular web application. Right? Collection of web pages. Yes. Right. So this is about your, website. And what are the types of websites we have? What are the types of websites? Right. So each website has its own unique URLs. Good. So yes, we can give many examples for websites or for web applications. We have, e-commerce applications, right? Educational websites. Yes, very good. So there are two types of websites, right? Static website and dynamic website. So what is static website? Yes, websites can be hosted on more than one servers. And yes, these websites or web applications are managed by its own organizations, or we can say owners, right? Yes, so we have two types of websites, right? Static and dynamic. So what is static website? Collection of web pages, okay? Right. So static website is nothing but, yes, it's having, fixed content and it displays that same content. The content or the information will not change, right? So that's called it as static website. So you all can see here, observe. So static website is a basic, type of websites and that are easy to create or to develop. And yes, it's a collection of static web pages. And to develop these static web pages, we don't need to have any knowledge about programming. Either it can be C or C++ or Java. Any programming knowledge is not required. So then what it's required? So a basic HTML knowledge. If it's a basic, that's more than enough to create or to develop static websites or web applications, right? Yes, the data, it's not changeable, right? URL, uniform resource locator, right? So then what is dynamic website? What is dynamic website? Internally contained changes automatically. Okay. Right. Dynamic website which contains web pages that are generated in real time. Good. Right. So it's a collection of dynamic web pages whose content changes dynamically. And the dynamic websites uses client-side scripting, or we can say, server-side scripting. Right. So basically dynamic websites, which is used for developing, specifically for sharing data, right? Web pages fixed contained. No. So in dynamic websites, the data is not fixed. In any web application, in dynamic websites or web applications, only home page is fixed. Okay. So we can, we can have an example as, Gmail. So when you enter username and password. So basically, when you type URL www.gmail.com, so that page is common or similar for every user, right? But when you enter your own username and detail, next next the redirected page or the content, are those contents are same for every user? No, right? So always in dynamic websites, the data is going to change dynamically. Right, so we can give many examples for dynamic websites or web applications like Facebook, Gmail, e-commerce applications, shopping applications. There are many more. So basically, websites. What is the purpose of websites or web applications? So the main purpose of web applications is used for sharing data. So obviously, with web applications we share the data. So share the data. If example, if we take up Facebook, so there are many information which is shared across the globe, right? Right. So yes, web applications. Actually, we can differentiate this web application and website, but with similar features. So what is web application? Can we call web application and websites are same? Right. Especially for retrieving data or for sharing data. Right, retrieving data. Yes. No. Good. So when we call it as a web application, web application is also a group or a collection of related web pages. But what is the difference? What is the difference for between website and web application? Right. Yes, it's actually a web application. Google is a web application. Okay. Web applications are, yes, we can say, these are dynamic applications, but the differentiation between web application and website. So website can be dynamic or can be static, but web application, the main intention of web application is to share the data. So when we can share the data, when we place the application on server, any server, right? Right. So the application, web application, which runs on web servers. So that's the difference, the main difference between web application and website. Right. So yes, web applications is an application which is accessible from web. So application needs to be placed on server, any server. We can place web applications, any application on one or more than single servers. Right. So yes, it's a composed, web applications are composed of web components like servlets, JSP, HTML, CSS, even we can have a JavaScript, etc. So there are many more, technologies which we can use to develop web applications, or we can say web components. Okay. Right. So in our session, what we are going to learn to develop or to learn web application development, that's the servlets and JSP and basic parts of HTML and CSS. Right? Actually, it's a web application because it's hosted on server. Yes, Vikas, it's a web application. It's for Java. Specifically, it is Java. So advanced Java. So basic, prerequisites for this session needs, need to have core Java basics. And yes, MySQL basics as well. SQL basics. Right. So you all can observe, the architecture of an web application. Websites, suppose, website is an application. Okay, website is also an application. When we call it as a website, I mean, what is the main difference? The application can be developed by anyone, right? But if you place that on server, okay, if you place that on, or we can say hosted on any server, then that's called it as a web application. Suppose if we are not, hosted on any server, okay, so that is website. Hope you are getting differences. We can develop many applications, right? If we are not hosted on any server, then we cannot call it as a web application because we cannot able to access or the web. Okay. So actually above there is a one question that's about URL. Now it's about but though it is, it's about videos. Are those videos are sharing? This is Sudha, right? Yes. If you, if you open youtube.com, so you can receive, you can search any of the video. So it's like exchanging information. It's not only with a, in the form of text. It can be images or graphics, audios, videos, etc. Which one? Deva, could you explain in depth which concept? Is web application or website? Please confirm it. URL. Uniform resource locators. So basically this URL is used for accessing, any websites. So it's a unique name. Which one? Okay. So we will be having practicals on this, when we have learned with, when we are going to learn with the HTML, no need to worry. So, but this is just an introduction part of web application. So yes, URL is an acronym or, short form uniform resource locator. And it's a reference, or we can say address to a resource on the internet, or we can say protocol identifier. Okay, so when we type http colon / with xyz.com, so that xyz, that's a website name, or we can say resource name. Okay, so that's a resource name. Let me take an example. So here, http is a protocol identifier. Okay, so it's a protocol. Even we will be having small session on this http protocol as well. Okay, so now http is a protocol identifier. Okay, there are different protocols, but yes, mainly with web application, http is the one most most usable protocol it is. Okay, so then we have resource name. So here, what is a resource name? Google. Let me take just a minute. Okay. Okay. So URL uniform resource locators. Okay. So here example I've taken it as an HTTP. So http / I'm taking it as an example.com. Okay. So what is HTTP? It's a protocol. You can say protocol identifier. Okay, protocol identifier. And here I have it as an example, right? So this is a resource name. Resource name. So resource.com, it's a, example.com is a resource name. Okay, so this is a specific, it's a unique. It's not common for all the applications. So we can take it as an www.google.com. Okay. So someone asked me why, is YouTube is a web application. So wherever we use, www.com or, World Wide Web. So that is a web application. So yes, youtube.com, right? Etc. We can give many examples. It's really. See, before starting servlets and JSP, I'm trying to give you introduction about web application and websites. Okay. Right. So yes, how. Okay, let me share my screen, reshare my screen. What about now? Okay, good. Fine. So now, it's about architecture, how user interacts with the server. Hope my screen is visible. Please confirm it. Right. So how user interacts with web application? We can say user or client, right? So when user interacts with web application, or through front end technology, or we can say presentation layer. Okay. So with the help of protocol, with the help of HTTP protocol. Okay, user is not taking help of HTTP protocol. So HTTP protocol, the application which is built on by using that HTTP protocol. So HTTP protocol takes request from the user or client. Okay, so he will search us in a file system. He will search us in a file system. In case if the the requested resource if not find in file system. So here we have so you can see here we have file system. Okay, so in case if the requested file is if not founded in file system, then the controller or the request again it moves to the web servers. Okay, now in the web servers, with the help of this servers, or we can say server, the file will be, or the request will be forwarded to the web server. And depending on the data or request which is sent by the user, it searches in a web servers. So web servers, maybe, there might be a requirement of accessing data, right? So it depends on the request. It searches in a web servers. And if the requested data found in web servers, that, data will be returned back to the client with the help of response object, or we can say HTTP response. Okay, so this response will be, returned in the form of presentation layer, or we can say in the form of text or images, graphics, etc. Depending on the request, the response will be given back to the client. Hope it's clear. So this is a back-end operation, which is, it takes care. But as a, front-end, user requirement is just, requesting the resource. Okay, so depending on the data which is requested by user, yes, or through front end, or we can say presentation layer. So the request will be sent or sent to the file system. If the file system is not, if the file system is not found, the requested file, then it reaches to the file web server. And in the web server, yes, it finds a response. Okay, that response will be sent back to the client in the form of text or images, audios, videos, etc. So this is how interaction will be interaction is happening with the web application, even in day-to-day life. So even now also you people are logged in with one web application right now. So how you have interacted? We have interacted with the presentation layer. So, and you'll be getting one home page, right? And that home page will be, basically it will not be there in a file system because this is related to the web application, right? So then now, in the web servers, your request will be found, and depending on the data, actually this is database related because whenever we enter username and password, obviously it has to be there, it has to be searched from, retrieved from the database, right? And the response back, response given back to the client in the form of HTML pages. I'm talking about, the live part now. Okay, when you enter your username and password, that is a user interaction with the presentation layer. And now first it will search us with the file system. Of course, it will not find that because this is a web application interaction. So it reaches means the request will be reaches to redirected to the web server. And yes, that request will found with its database information. And then the response will be given back to the client. So who is taking care of this request and response handling? Who's taking care of this request and response, handling? Just now we have talked about HTTP, right? So HTTP will be taken care by this accepting request and sending response back to the client or user. Don't be confused with a client or user. Right. So this is about, web application architecture. Okay. So remember, always as a user or client, we interact with web application through presentation layer, and we will request. Okay. So we request some, it can be data or images or audio, videos, etc. Right. And that request will be taken care by, accepted by HTTP protocol, and that will be redirected or such as in a file system. If that file is not found in file system, then it will be redirected to web server or servers. And depending on the data which is sent by user, it will search us, and again response sent back to the client. So the request and responses are taken care by HTTP protocol. Yes, backend developers. Right. Hope it's clear. Right. So now let's move ahead. So next, it's about HTTP. Okay, good. Any questions on web application architecture? Okay, so what is protocol? What is protocol? Right? Protocol is nothing but a set of instructions, set of rules, right? A set of rules or procedures for transmitting data between devices or between computers. Good. Right. So HTTP protocol is an application level protocol for collaboration and for the distribution. So yes, it's a protocol is set of rules or instructions. Specifically, it's used for transmitting data over the net or the web for in between different systems, or we can say computers or any electronic device. Right. Yes, HTTP protocol is application level protocol. So the main intention is for collaboration and for distribution. Yes, forgot about HTTP. Yes, HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And this is the application level protocol. So mainly it's used for collaboration and for distribution. And also, so we can say this HTTP protocol is, data communication, or it's used for providing data communication. And basically it establishes communication between client and server. Right. HTTP protocol, it establishes connection between client and the server. So that's what, that's what we do with the web application. So we interact with the web application, right? So who will, accept requests and responses? So that is HTTP protocol. That's what is an establishes connection, communication or connection between client and the server. So that's what is an HTTP protocol. Right. So yes, and one more point, main, important point about HTTP protocol. So this HTTP protocol is laid on top of, or we can say, it's a TCP/IP based communication protocol, which is built on top of TCP/IP. Okay. So mainly, it's used for delivering data like images, audio, video, HTML files or text files, etc. So where we can, deliver, so that is on World Wide Web. Okay, so it establishes communication with client and server. So that's what, www. So World Wide Web. In day-to-day life, so whenever you give request, so that request, given to the server or transferred to the server. So who is taking care? So that is protocol. So specifically, almost applications, most of the applications uses this HTTP protocol. Right. So one important, thing about HTTP protocol. So it's a stateless protocol. So what is stateless protocol? What is stateless protocol? What is stateless protocol? Can someone answer in the chat? Okay. Okay. It's not HTML, it's HTTP. Okay. So HTTP is a stateless protocol in the sense when we enter, okay, when we enter for the first time within, when you enter details, your details within application, any web application. So this protocol considered, user as a new user. Okay. Suppose again, if you interact, again, if you try to log in with that application, so this protocol accept that details, user as a new user. Okay. So this HTTP protocol will not remember any user information. Right. So need not keep track of any state. Okay. So this HTTP protocol will not maintain user data. Okay. Whenever user interacts with application, web application, this HTTP protocol accept that user as a new user. So that's what is that's called it as stateless protocol. Hope it's clear about stateless protocol. Right. So next we'll move ahead with the HTTP request and responses and its architecture. So just now we have seen with the web application, same way it is, client interacts with the server. So how this interaction is, taken care? HTTP protocol. Yes, Dinesh, what is the doubt? Yes, I will. Oh, I'm not saying that. See, I said HTTP protocol is stateless protocol, right? So what is stateless protocol? User data will not be stored in application. Okay. For the first time, okay. For the first time, if we enter data, user data in the sense, assume that Username and password. I'm just giving example, username and password. Okay. So now this, So now this, HTTP protocol identifies that this user is a new user. Okay. So again, same user, same user interact with same application, same web application. So what happens now? Oh. Okay. Just a minute. Okay, give me a minute. Okay, I reshared my screen. Hope my screen is visible now with a notepad. Okay, so if user interacts, again, if same user interacts with same web application, what happens? This HTTP protocol, it accepts, accept that user as new user again. Okay, so that's what we call it as a stateless protocol. Don't ask me now. A question is like, we can store, we can store the data. Yes, we can store data. We can store data by session tracking. That we will later, we will learn in future sessions. Okay, for now, remember, HTTP protocol will not retain user data. Okay, so that's what is your stateless protocol. Hope it's clear about, stateless protocol. So now we'll move on to architecture. So just now we have seen this architecture with web application. So same, but their interaction, client will be interacted with the front end, and that will be redirected to file system. So here, whatever the directions are given as a client when he requests, so that request will be taken care by this HTTP protocol. Right, let me. See, so we have a client and the client accepts, when you type something, that request will be, accepted by this HTTP request, HTTP protocol. Okay, so that will be sent to server, and depending on the request or requested data, yes, it performs, backend operations. And yes, after performing those, the response will be given back to client. So this is what the architecture of an HTTP request and response objects. Right. So you just have to remember HTTP is a protocol, it handles, it taken care of request and response handling. All right, let me erase this. Okay, so let's move ahead. Right. So HTTP protocol, yes, of course, it allows web servers and web browsers to exchange data. And yes, mainly it's a request response protocol. We can say HTTP is a request and response protocols. And as we have discussed, it's a stateless protocol. So you guys can observe here. Each request is considered as new request because server doesn't recognize user by default. Right. Yes, request is sent by computer to web server, which contain all sort of information. Okay, so all sort of information, that's called as an HTTP request. Okay, so whenever I type, suppose, assume that I typed in Google, so I have gone through Google, I typed it as an ExcelR. So how, that request, so you might, typed it as an ExcelR in Google, but internally there will be a different procedure. So there will be a name, protocol name, resource name, and a few information. So that will be sent, that will be accepted by this HTTP request. Right. So this HTTP client sends request to the server in the form of request message. So what it includes? It includes IP address, port number, proxy, requested, requested lines, requested URI, uniform resource identifier. So just now I said ExcelR, it's a kind of identifier, right? Why I'm giving, because we are going to learn servlets in future. So we needed this information. Okay. Right. So HTTP client, sends a request, and that request is, it includes these information. It's not only these, even we have many more. Okay. But I've given sample, 3 things as an IP address, port number, proxy, requested lines, the number of lines of data, and requested URIs, etc. I have already given about, given for the URL, uniform resource locators. Right. I have not given, I guess I've not saved. Let me. Okay, so I'm typing here. Okay, so later you all can find this. Right, let's move to HTTP methods. HTTP protocol is having its own methods. Okay, so we have 5 to 6 methods, but hardly we need to aware of 3 methods mainly. Okay, right. What are those methods? Get, put, post, delete, head, etc. So we'll see one by one. So first method is get method. Okay, right. So get, yes, it's a method of HTTP protocol and it gets a resource at requested URL. Basically, for getting requested information, we can use this get method. It's not here, don't be confused. Here I have given it as a get the resource at the requested URL. Okay, so when you're trying to send some request, in such cases we can use this get method. And we have post. Okay, post method. So basically, even it's a kind of request, along with the request, you are trying to send some data. Okay, it's like requesting with a extra information. Okay, so don't be confused with these two. These two are very important even for the further classes. Get and post. URI and URL. Okay. What is then? Okay, can someone tell me what is URI and URL stands for? Let me give here. URI is an uniform resource identifier. Uniform resource identifier. Okay, so even we can say URI is an identifier of specific resource. Okay, URI is an identifier of a specific resources. Okay, so resources like what? Like web pages, or we can say document. Resources like a page. I'm just giving it as a page. Okay, right. If it is an URL, it's a special type of identifier that allows us, to how to access a specific web application. Okay, so either it can be HTTPS or FTP. There are different types of protocols. Okay, this locator URL, let me give here It's a special type of, it's special type of identifier. Okay, so special type of identifier that that tells how to access it. Okay, how to access it in the sense particular or specific web application. Okay, so here I can write stress HTTPS. Okay, HTTPS or HTTP, FTP, etc. We have many more protocols. Okay, so it depends on application usage. So here I'm giving it as an https://gmail. Let me give it as an google.com. Okay, so same way here, http://gmail.com. So you guys can find the difference, right? So this is about your URL. So URI, URI, it's a name along with the locators. It's just an identifier with a specific name. Hope it's clear now. See here where I have given uniform resource identifier. So here how you can identify? You can identify with a Google. So here I'm giving it as an example. Here I'm giving, identifier as, Google. Okay, so here the name is Google. Okay, one more example also I've given, right? Or Gmail. But locator, how you can access this Google or Gmail with the help of a specific type of, specialized URL. Protocol. URI is it stands for Uniform Resource Identifier. And yes, we can say it's an identifier of a specific resources like a page, or we can say book or any product. Okay. But if it is a URL, it's a special type of identifier that allows us to, or it tells us to access in a specific form. What is that specific form? It can be basically most of the applications uses HTTP, right? But yes, few may, the required applications may use FTP or TCP/IP. It depends. Most of the applications uses, HTTP or HTTPS. So what's the difference between HTTP and HTTPS? HTTPS is more secure than HTTP. So let me write here. HTTP is more secure than HTTP protocol. Okay. Right. Yes. So we have, get and post, and we have a head. So basically head method is for, getting header part, header information. And we have put method. So basically put method is used for enclosing information at the requested URL. And we have delete. Okay, so basically delete method if we want to delete any resource. Okay, if we want to delete any resource, we can use this, delete method. And we have options as well. Okay, so options method will ask, for a list of HTTP methods. So in that you can select any of the, method from this HTTP protocol. Right. So next, we are moving to get versus post. Here mainly we are discussing about, get and post, because most of the applications, especially with our further classes, we are going to use, this get or post method. So compulsorily we need to aware about this get and post method. Right. Yes. So what is get method? What is the use of get method? Right. So these two are the methods of HTTP protocol. And with the help of get method, we can send limited amount of, data in a header part. Small amount of data can be transferred by using this get method. And yes, get method is not secured. So why it is not secured? Because the data will be exposed in URL part. Okay, so the data will be exposed in URL. And it's a more efficient when we compare with the post method. Right. So yes, it requests the data from specified URL. And yes, it can be cached, and even we can bookmark this get method, get method related request URLs. Okay, we can bookmark this get method. And also data can be maintained. Right. Getting something from, server. Before getting, we may need to send some data. Okay. So we need to send data, either can be with the help of get or post. But here the difference is, yes, when we talk about a get, of course, we can send, but the data will be exposed in URL. So this get method is not secured. Right. So it can have, even restrictions with a length. That's what is a less data, less amount of data can be sent to the header part. Right. Move to the another method, that is post method. So now I can say, it's opposite of get method. Opposite in the sense, we can send large amount of data. There is no restriction here. And yes, it's a more secure than get method, because the data will not be exposed in URL. So it's a more secured when we compare with the get method. Right. right? So it sends a process data to a specific resource and data will not be exposed in URL, right? And the post request data sent in the message body. Okay, so the data will be sent in the message body, right? And this cannot be bookmarked and even this cannot be cached, right? So do not retain in browser memory. That's what is it, cannot be cached, right? So this is less efficient when we compare with a get method, but it is secured. The post method is secured. Hope it's clear. Get versus post. In further, yes, we will be using these two methods in our web application, web component development. Okay, so any questions? What is the maximum length of get method? It's a 2048. The length of get method characters, the data which sent. So that is a 2048. Length of get method data is 2048. Approximately, I'm giving it as a 2048. Okay, so more than that, we can send with a post method. Right. So the next important part of web application is the layers of application. So this is the one most important content or a topic. So layers of an application or web application layers. So what are the layers? What are the layers of an application? So basically 3 types, but we can include one more type. But here I had included 3 types only. Okay. So the first one is presentation layer and business layer, or we can say data processing layer as well. Okay. So we do have one more layer, that is database, database layer. Okay. So we have 3 types of layers of an application: presentation layer, and to develop or to create this presentation layers, we can use HTML front-end technologies. Okay, so front-end technologies as in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, etc. We have many more like JSP, JSF, etc. But here, for in our sessions, we are going to learn basic, concepts of presentation layer technologies. Those are HTML and CSS. And yes, data processing, or we can, we can call it as a business layer. So even we can say, we can call it as a controller. Okay, so to develop this business, to perform this controller action, so we will learn, or we can use this servlet technology. And we have, database layer. So that is Jdbc, Java Database Connectivity. Okay, so basically this layer is for, storing data. Okay, I hope you people are aware about, web application, right? So when user, interacts with application, how user will interact, that's with the presentation layer. And when you click on login, that login has to be redirected to somewhere else, right? So that action will be taken care by this servlet. And yes, before taking action, yes, there should be a validation. Okay, when I enter my username and password, it has to be checked in database whether that the credentials are valid or not, right? So these are the different layers of an applications, any web application it may be. Okay, so there will be a user interaction through presentation layer, and yes, database layer where data will be stored, and interaction between presentation layer and database layer will be taken care by this business layer, or we can, in simple way, we can say it as a controller. Okay, so the navigations or redirections will be taken care by this controllers. Right, it's just a continuation. Right, so this layer displays user interface and facilitate user interaction. And of course, user interface components render and format data per user and user process. Okay, so user process components. So those components are orchestrates user interaction. So always user interacted, right? So user will be interacted with web application with the help of this presentation layers. Yes, we can use many technologies for developing this, presentation layers. JavaScript, yes, are not included. Yes, even JavaScript also, can be used for developing presentation layer. Okay, so the next one, right? So it says that presentation layer, layer provides necessary data to the, to be client side. And we have business layer. Yes, business logic or domain logic. Okay, so it's a part of web application, or we can say it's a part of program that encodes real world business rules, that determines how data can be created, stored, and the data can be changed dynamically. Okay, so this is about business layer, and we have one more layer, that's a database layer. And nowadays, database layers are very important, for securing data, right? So along with the database, layers, there should be a validations. There are many more, things, right? So here it says that this layer allows access to the database system. So that can be binary files, XML files, or images, audio, video. So basically, this layer allows us to perform CRUD operations. So what are the CRUD operations? Create, read, update, delete, etc. So we can say manipulation of data. Okay, so this is about your database layer, and we are going to learn these 3-layer development in our further sessions. Okay, so presentation layer, business layer, or we can say controller, and we have one more, that is database layer. Right, hope it's clear. So this is about introductory part of web applications, websites, and HTTP protocol and layers of an application. Any queries from this? And now again. If any queries, yes, you can ask now. And I'll give introduction about JDBC. See, in this day one, just an introduction part of web applications and all we have discussed. Okay, so now introduction of JDBC. Okay. See, get is a method of is this doubt Avalika, not Avalika, so this is Gautam, right? Okay, so get is a method of HTTP protocol. So basically this method is used for sending request. Okay, sending request. So while sending request, there are few drawbacks, and of course, there are few advantages as well, because it's a more efficiency. Okay, so we can transfer less amount of data in the header part, and it is not secured. Why it is not secured? When I enter data, suppose assume that I have gone through that gmail.com and I have entered my Gmail ID and password, and I click on login. When I click on login, or when you people clicked on login, have you all, any of the time, have you all observed that URL? I guess no, but still, a few may observe, right? So nowhere data is displayed in the URL. I mean that username and password. If we use a get method, the data will be displayed. That secured whatever the data you send, the data will be displayed in URL. So this get method is not secured. If not observed, after this session, you all can try once whether it will display it or not. Web application, most of the web applications will not use this get method. Okay, if any if any sensitive data. Okay, right. So hope you all got. Is my screen is frozen? No, right? See, for not for all applications, there are few applications they may need to use the data, right? Sorry, they may need to use this get method to provide efficiency, to get more efficiency. In such cases, we can use this get method. It's for the efficiency. Okay, I'll reshare my screen. Okay. I'll share again. Let's move to JDBC. It's not missed. I'm about to start. right? So in search, keywords, we don't need to use this get method, the post method, because it's not secure. If say, remember, if any sensitive data in such cases, not good to use get method. So always, we prefer post method, right? Let's go ahead with JDBC. See, first, we are learning, what is that? In all three layers. So we will be learning database layer. First, we are going to learn database layer. I mean, how to store the data, how to, how Java interacts with the database. So that we are going to discuss. Okay, after database, then we are going to learn presentation layer. Okay, so then it is about business layer. Okay. So now it's about database, database layer. So what is database? What is database? Okay. Still, tell you people are having doubt with the get and put method, right? For secure, for secure data, we prefer post method. If it is a get method, if it is any, familiar data like searching, some data in Google, or if you want to send, data or the URL, in such cases, you can go ahead with a get, get method. But we will learn this, these things practically with servlets. Right. So next, concept is about database. So yes, what is database? First of all, what is data? Yes, what is data? Yes, no one is answering. Fine. So data is a information. Yes, we can say it as a facts. Right. It's a raw material or raw information. Yes. So that raw information, or the facts which we collect in database in the form of tables. Okay, so data is raw information. Okay, right. And this raw data, or information, raw information, or we can say fact. facts. Okay. We collect, we accept this request or we collect this request in database in the form of tables. Okay. Collection or storing data in the form of tables, right? So that's called it as a database. So now I can give it for this. Okay, storing data. So it's a collection or, storing data in the form of tables. So that is what is a database. And now we are trying to provide, we are trying to access this data. Okay, we're trying to access this data in the form of, which is stored in the form of tables, right? So what kind of data it can be? It can be, I'm just giving it as an example, student info, right? Or employee info, right? Or any, real-time object info, because, it's a related to real-time objects, right? Real-time object info. Okay. Right. So with that, database, Java is going to be communicated. Right. So it's a collection of related data in the form of tables. So that's called it as a database. And now we provide connection with the, database with a Java application. Okay. We provide or providing connection with, a database with a Java application. That's called it as a Java database connectivity or connection. That is. Hope it's clear. So Java database connection or connectivity. So what we are trying to do, okay, so we are trying to provide connectivity with database and Java application. Okay, so we are trying to access, not clearly visible. Okay, let me reshare. What's the problem? Hope it's clearly visible. Okay, so this is called as a Java database connection. Okay, good. Right. So yes, we are trying to collect information. Okay, so even we can say it as a persistence, persisting data. So how we persist data? Persisting data can be, in a different ways. So in that, one basic technology as in Jdbc. Okay, so what we are trying to do or perform persisting data with the help of Java. So even we can say it is a persistence or persistency. Okay, so let's go ahead with the presentation. Right. Yes, prerequisites for this session. So yes, we need to have a basic knowledge on Java and SQL basic queries, and install the MySQL software. And yes, of course, we required Eclipse and Tomcat server for further classes. Okay, not for now. So it'll be for the further classes. Okay, right. Yes, the contents, top contents, it's about introduction to Jdbc and connection to a database and CRUD operations using database or Jdbc. But for now or for today's session, so we will be having only introduction of Jdbc or introduction to Jdbc. Okay, so yes, have a look on this. So persistence. So basically, persistency or persistence in computer science is nothing but store the data beyond application process. And is, of course, after persisting, after storing the data, then of course, implementation of the persistency in object-oriented programming. So which means, saving and maintaining the state of the object, which is beyond the, application lifetime. So that's called as an persistence or, persisting data. So it's nothing but just collection of data. Okay, so collection of data whether beyond the application lifetime. Right. So next, we'll be having Jdbc part. Right. Yes, Java database connectivity. It allows us to write Java application to connect with a relational database. So relational database with the help of Jdbc API. So what is API? What is API? API stands for Application Programming Interface. Right. Yes. So we perform CRUD operation with the Jdbc. Okay. So with the database. With the help of Jdbc API. So my question is, what is API? API, it's a reusable component, or it's just a software component. It provides reusable components. Okay, it provides reusable components. So what are those components? like, classes, interfaces. Right. So application programming interface. So basically it's a kind of software component. That's it. Okay. So it's just a software, a piece of software, which is having, reusable components like related classes and its interfaces. So that's called it as an application programming interface or API. Okay. Right. Application program interface. So it just provides reusable components like classes and interface. Okay. So basically we have two types of APIs. So what are those? Java.sql and the other one is Java x.sql. Okay. So these are the two types of APIs which we will be learning in further, in future. Okay. Right. So yes, Jdbc is an industry standard API which provides programmatic access to various relational databases, from Java application. So now we are going to learn Jdbc with a SQL, MySQL. So any database can be fine. Right. So main concepts of Jdbc, yes, it's a Jdbc API, driver manager, and now it's about API. So driver manager, we'll discuss it later. Right. So two packages, java.sql. So yes, it provides a basic functionalities. Like, providing registers and driver classes and establishing connection. And, after establishing connection, then we will, process further. Okay. So I can give, one simple example. Before joining, if you want to access, the things from ExcelR, so what you'll do, definitely you need to have you need to register, right now. So after registered with ExcelR, then you can, you can attend, live classes, or you can access the resources or any material of a specific course, right? So, we can have, we can access any resource. Yes. Okay. Right. So, as an ExcelR, students or resources, we can access any of the resource from that company, or, right. So same way, if you want to perform, any operation with a database, especially with a Java, so there should be a connectivity. Okay. So how we, we provide those connectivities. So that's with the help of, basic functionalities like providing registers and, driver classes and establishing connection. Right. So yes, the one more API, that is Java XSQL. So this API basically it's for providing services to server side. Okay. So especially this is used with the web applications. Okay. Right. So Java XSQL package. So yes, it serves for the server side accessing of data and processing data in the database. So these are the two types of APIs which we can use in our Jdbc connection. And the next one is about driver manager. So what is driver manager? Yes, any idea? Driver manager. Driver manager is actually, it's a class in, Java database connectivity. Okay, so basically, it's used for managing a set of database connectivity. Okay, so database connectivity drivers that are available for an application, for a specific usage to control the workflow, right? So basically workflow in the sense to control the workflow, connectivity flow with a database. Hope it's clear. Right. So to register driver classes, good. Right. So yes, the Java the connect Java application to a database drivers, which are needed. So that will be performed with, provided with driver manager, right? So in order to connect to a specific database, yes, specific drivers are needed, right? And to provide those specific drivers, this driver manager is responsible for loading and registering the driver in order to connect with a specific database. Right. So you all can see here Java application. So we are, using driver manager class, where this driver manager class provides, establishes connection with database. And now it established connection with a database. So we cannot, without APIs, we cannot perform this establishment. So compulsorily we have to use Jdbc APIs. Either it can be Java SQL or can be Java X.SQL. Right. So now we'll talk about, further we will be having that discussion session. So driver. So what is driver? So drivers are, driver is a piece of software. Yes, so drivers are used for, yes, interacting, good. So Java database connectivity driver is a software component. It's just a component, which is for enabling a Java application to interact with a database. Okay. Jdbc. It's a driver, right? So Jdbc driver is software component. Okay. Which enables to interact, to interact with database. Okay, so this is about driver. Right. And now it's about JDBC drivers. Okay. So we have 4 types of drivers. 4 types of drivers. What are those? What are the 4 types of drivers? We have type 1, right? For type 1, we can call it as an, JDBC, ODBC, bridge driver. So first one is JDBC. Okay. And we have, native API. Native API driver. And then it's about network protocol. And the fourth one is about thin driver. Okay, so these are the 4 types. So let me give you, a brief information about these 4 types. So JDBC, ODBC is, discouraged. Okay, so this driver is discouraged because this driver, basically what happens, it converts JDBC method calls to ODBC method calls, or we can say functional calls. Okay. ODBC bridge driver, it converts JDBC method calls into ODBC functional calls. So this is, the reason this driver is discouraged. And this can be used only for a smaller scale applications, not for the larger transactions. And we can say a few drawbacks. Okay, so what are the drawbacks? Performance is degraded because JDBC calls are going to be converted to ODBC calls. And again, ODBC driver needs to be installed on client machine. Okay. So this is, these are the disadvantages of this JDBC ODBC bridge driver. Okay, we can say it's easy to use and can easily connect it with any database. But only one drawback or main drawback is, the functional calls. Okay, so JDBC calls will be converted to functional calls. So that's the reason, we're moving to the other one. So that is which one? That is native API driver. Okay, native API driver. So what is native API driver? So this is also used for establishing connection with a database, but this driver uses client-side libraries. Okay, it uses client-side libraries. Client-side libraries of any database. Okay, so now what happens? The driver, whichever the driver it is with the client side, so the driver, needs to convert. Okay, the driver converts JDBC method calls into native calls of database API. Driver that calls into native method calls. Okay, so that is the reason even it is discouraged, and we're moving with the network protocol. Okay, so one disadvantage, degrade of this native protocol is every client needs to install this. Okay, always that's not a preferable, right? So we're moving to network protocol, right? So this network protocol, it uses middleware, or we can say application server, that converts JDBC calls directly, directly or indirectly into a specific vendor, database protocol. Fine. So I'm just giving, brief overview. Again, we discuss this, in depth, right? So network protocol, it uses, middleware. So for this middleware, we can say it as an application server. Okay, so application server. So that converts JDBC calls directly or indirectly. What? Into the vendor specific database protocol. Okay. Right. So this is about your network protocol driver. So now again we have one more protocol. Right. So the next one is about thin driver, thin driver, or we can say type 4 driver as well. So what is thin driver? What is the advantage nowadays? Almost for establishing connection with a database, so always thin driver is preferable, or it's used because directly it converts. This thin driver converts JDBC calls directly into vendor specific database call protocols, and this is developed purely in database, Java. This is, these drivers are developed or written in Java, right? So thin driver, it converts JDBC calls directly into the vendor okay. So that's a reason, this is a reason we call it as a thin driver. That's why it's known as thin driver. Okay, and it's written in, it's written Java language. So no middleware conversions like function calls, etc. Okay, so directly whichever the call it comes, that will be converted directly to it's a specific database call. So that's what is a thin driver, and so the most of the time this thin driver is preferable because it provides a better performance when we compare with all other drivers. And yes, no software is required at client machine or server side, or client machine, server machine. And yes, these drivers are dependent on specific database. Okay, so this is about JDBC drivers. Hope it's clear. So from next class onwards, we will be having practicals. Okay, so with the hands-on, we are going to learn JDBC, HTML, CSS, and servlets. Any queries so far? Fine then. So time is up. We can end the session. So we will be having again tomorrow. Meanwhile, as a prerequisites, please install any database. Okay, any database, MySQL or Oracle or MongoDB, anything is fine. Yes. Any queries? Drop a message in chat window, so we will get back to you later. Okay, so thanks for all of you to be present here. If any queries, drop a message. I'll get back to you in tomorrow's session. Thank you all.